Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show where I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Blacklist. A great episode. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Obviously, we get our first real introduction to the Orion Relocation services. It's interesting, and I was like, oh, we're kind of meeting them, and it's like, oh, you're making these two people move and everything like that. It's like, oh, that's neat. I was like, oh, so it's like, the moment it's like, oh, DC and everything, I was like, right, they're going to take care of, like, I was like wondering like what this is all going to be about. Like, oh, it's like, okay, so this is like identities and stuff like that. It's kind of sad they end up killing the person because I was like, yeah, to wait for them to officially sign all the paperwork so everything's above board so nothing looks questionable, but then like making them disappear. In particular, they pick people who don't have any family, like no one would miss them if they went missing. So, and it's like, oh, 9 weeks ago, which is kind of crazy to think about. Literally, it's kind of interesting because that basically means every episode has basically happened over the course of a week. That a week has passed in between every episode so far. I just think that's kind of interesting. And once again, I'm always weird like that, where I'm always curious to learn how much this space, how much time passes between episodes, and how much time passes over the course of an entire season, like whether an entire show can happen over the course of a year or something crazy like that. It's always just interesting. But regardless, so obviously Reddington is increasing his way of looking into the Orion relocation services, and inadvertently he has to join in with Liz, but obviously Liz is coming at this from a different angle because for her, she's trying to figure out this whole situation. It's like, who's this lady you're after? Reddington refuses to give her, Katarina's identity, so... Which the argument could be, if he did that ahead of time, this whole problem would have been solved in the first place. But because Reddington's so dead set on keeping his secrets, because he doesn't want Liz to know that her mom is directly in the picture, because he knows that when this is all said and done, he's probably going to have to kill Katarina. So that's probably why he doesn't want to let Liz know, because he knows it's like, the only way this is going to end if I put her down. Which begs the question, would he be able to in the grand scheme of things? I mean, to be fair, we've thought this entire time that he was Kozlov, but the fact of the matter is that he's not. Means he might not have that special attachment to Katarina, so when the time comes, he might put her down just for the principle. I mean, if it means, like we learned so much in this episode, but I think if it was for the sake of protecting Liz from everything that comes with Katarina, all the baggage of all the people that want her dead, then, it's a well worth sacrifice. But he probably doesn't want her to know, because it's like, well, people around you that end up dead, kind of connected to me, don't always end well. It's like, well, Tom kind of died because of my secrets. Kate died because of my secrets. So part of the last thing, well, hell, he even killed your adopted father to keep his secret. So it turns into that whole complicated thing as well. So I thought it was really interesting too how they like set it up, where we introduced that they're after like this jewel thief. Her name's Bert, because she's trying to relocate, because obviously if they can track her down, they can find out about the Orion relocation services. And I think it's so interesting because when we get introduced to her, it's like, oh, she's like, I need to disappear. But the sad thing is we end up finding out that the lady we got introduced to isn't a thief. That's actually a woman trying to escape an abusive relationship. It's like, oh, Jesus. And they're going to kill her so that this thief can have her identity, which makes that just even more depressing, because she's a victim in this situation and she's going to become potentially another victim. It's escaping, running from what she's been through to end up in this situation. It's depressing, to know that that's kind of like the way of things, but still. But basically, like I said, Liz is tackling this from a different point of view, where like she knows what went down in the park, but for her, she's like, who are these guys? She brings in Aram as well as everyone else into this whole situation, at least Cooper at the very least, and is trying to like find out who these guys are, and it turns out they're tied to the Russian mob, which she immediately interprets as like, if they're from the Russian mob, she thinks that the person they were after the entire time was Agnes, because she might have probably thought like, oh, they pieced it together that that's Katarina's granddaughter, they're after Katarina, so that's what she started thinking was all that. And it's so sad because she turns to the one person she shouldn't trust. She's like, hey, Madeline, I know you're busy in the meeting, but can you let my daughter? It's like, oh, one person I could trust. I was like, how ironic is all of that? Which, side note, I would have never pieced it together until Katarina was like, Madeline. Like the book, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. I remember the cartoon growing up. Obviously, the cartoon is based on the book. I feel like I remember the book from elementary school. I don't remember that well. I'm more familiar with the animated series, but regardless, I never knew that was a pair. I didn't never parallel that together, because that was the first time I'd ever heard the name Madeline before, which is interesting. But regardless, I just thought that was just kind of like interesting little side note that she even correlated that. But I guess as also as like a mother and a grandmother, because the last time she saw her daughter was kind of roughly around that same age, and now her granddaughter is about that age. I think that's probably like the parallels that they're potentially making, like the correlation between like, oh, she made a reference to the, you know, the children's book, that name. But regardless, once again, so there's that side of things. And then there's, well, really quickly, kind of on a lighthearted note, well, almost a lighthearted note, was this whole interesting thing of like, oh yeah, like they're meeting up with the dude, the Burke, she's trying to fence the stuff she stole. So it's, or at least try to fence the diamonds she was trying to steal. So they try to track down the fence. He's at this very exclusive dinner where like the cook only like cooks stuff when he feels inspired, and basically he's created this whole decorum that basically, you know, we had this fear just because things look this way, our brains are made us to not want to eat certain things just because it looks a certain way, smells a certain way. So like to be all artsy and stuff like that, he turns the lights off and it's like, we're just going to eat in the dark. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And then it's like, all right, the piece de la resistance, and it turns out to be a super rare owl. And I love Reddington gets up and he's like, no, are you kidding me? The fact of the matter is, you want to eat this owl? There's literally only 400 of them. Dude even said it himself. They're super endangered, and you want to eat it? You want to eat something? Eat a cow or eat a rabbit. They're delicious, and they multiply because, you know, they hump like, well, you know, rabbits. So I love that. He's like, you know, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, me and the owl, we're leaving. And he calls Liz. And I think you see this look on Liz's face like, oh, like, even I was like, oh, that's super sweet of Reddington to do that. You know, despite being the criminal that he is, the fact is he does have he's a bit of a softie and stuff like that. And I even think Liz kind of enjoyed that too, seeing him, you know, like, oh, that was kind of sweet. But regardless of all of that, another side of this episode was kind of interesting, was obviously the experiments meant to push Kozlov into revealing, you know, what went down. And I thought it was kind of interesting because it's basically like putting him in a bit of a trance to kind of take him back to 91 where all this went wrong. Once again, we saw the beginning stage of this story, and I like that. So what we find out is the fact of the matter is Dom didn't completely lie. He only told Liz half of the story, and now in retrospect, it makes sense why he only told half the story, because the other half of the story didn't make him look good. So basically, we end up learning, like, obviously sometime after the whole Reddington thing was set in place, it wasn't enough to kind of throw off the trail, because the fact of the matter is there were people who still believed that Katerina was alive, and in Dom's mind, it's like Masha, Liz, will never be safe as long as people think that Katerina is still alive, because the Townsend directive, whoever Townsend is, like, he's literally at the top of the list of people who wants her dead, which is interesting because it's like this whole directive came together because it's like different enemies of hers, whether it be U.S. enemies, Russian enemies, want her dead. Because to be fair, Katerina knows too damn much. Obviously, she's connected to Cabal, which I'm so curious to see is that's what's going to circle back around, because the Cabal angle has not been touched. Like, because there was a lady, she died like a couple seasons ago, Christine Lottie played her. She was a woman that wrestler accidentally killed, but she was part of the Cabal and everything like that. We've not seen the Cabal directly set back into this story, because I guess it's kind of like, you know, Liz is kind of no longer an option. Like, she was kind of a piece of exposing their whole situation. So it's like, I'm curious, like, is this going to circle back to them? Because I guess they are. I mean, obviously, Cabal is so integral to Katerina's story. So now I guess it would make sense, especially if Townsend's connected it, or maybe Townsend and this directive are like all their own thing. I'm curious, because I mean, not unless I'm not. I mean, to be fair, my memory is not good, so I might be remembering the fact wrong. Because I was assuming the Cabal was still kind of around and just kind of doing their own thing, but I know there was a whole point of like getting their names out there and proving that they exist, but I don't think that ever really happened. They took out obviously some of the members are dead, but I don't think everyone is dead. So I think they're still out there doing their own thing. Maybe it's connected, maybe it's not. But what was interesting is that Dom like suggested killing Katerina, and even, you know, Ilio being like, whoa, we can't do this. You're talking about killing your own daughter. It's like, because the fact is, this is the only way to make sure Townsend stops looking, because otherwise, Liz is going to get caught up in all of this. And, you know, and that hurts Katerina the most, because it's like, you were my friend. The fact of the matter is, like, I trusted you so wholeheartedly. You helped me in everything. You know, once again, they're childhood friends. And to be betrayed by someone you cared about and trusted so much, not only by him, by your father. Now in retrospect, you get a little more context of like, okay, I can understand why you tried to kill your dad too, because your dad was literally trying to kill you. He literally put you in a situation where he was trying to get you killed. And that's a crazy thing you think about it. I mean, the whole point was to have the Russians kill her so that they themselves know, but it's like you couldn't even do it yourself. You had to keep your own distance because you didn't want to get dragged into all of this as well. Because if you really wanted it done, you could have done it yourself. But I guess because even Katerina called it out, being like, "Oh, the theatrics of it all, like making such a scene of my death," which is kind of morbid when you think about it. But it's to prove it's meant to be so that if the Russians themselves do it, like because obviously Kozlov and Dom don't want to admit that they're still in, like, because they're looked at as traitors as well. But that's even Kozlov's, Ilya's thing of like, oh, don't pretend this was about Masha at any point in time. This was about protecting your own ass, because if they kept looking for Katerina, it would have led them back to you. You're a traitor and everything. So, which obviously now this is probably why Katerina's mom and her dad and Dom weren't together anymore, probably because like she probably found out what Dom was up to, what he did, and it was like, I can't forgive you. Or maybe Katerina eventually told her mom what the Dom tried to do. Maybe that's it. I mean, or it could have just been secret, the whole like living in secret and, not being with their daughter anymore. Like maybe that's what pushed them apart. We never really kind of got that side. Because the last time we saw was what we saw like last season of like the story Dom had told of like, oh yeah, like, oh, because he made it seem like it was a happily ever after, when in actuality there was so much more to the tale. And it turns out an extra reason why there was more to this tale is because Katerina was actually married. She fell in love. Obviously, she didn't tell Ilya because it's kind of like, well, and once again, it's that thing of not telling, like maybe if she had told Ilya back then, maybe that would have stopped him. But it's because they were like, wait, who is this guy? But Dom didn't care too much because all he cared about was like the fact is, oh, the plan went to shit. Like the Russians were coming in to kill her, but other people came too. It would have caused too much of a scene, so they backed away. So she didn't die, but the man she loved died because he was intent on, because obviously Katerina had told him everything, and he thought like, oh, she's back to this life or whatever. So it's like, no, I'm not about to let that happen. Like we went through so much to get you away from that life. I'm not about to let you dive so much deeper into it, especially because that life took so much away from her. And it's like, I don't want more of it to be taken away from you. But inadvertently, that life ended up taking something more from her. It's like no matter how much you run from your past always has a way of catching up to you, especially now because she knows like her best friend Ilya had something to do with that. Like, and that's the most heartbreaking thing. And obviously for him, he feels so bad about it because it's like, I didn't mean to hurt you like that. I didn't even know you were married. I didn't know you had a husband and everything. I did what I did because it was an impossible situation. So people were coming after you, and eventually it would have led to Liz, and she would have been used as a pawn in all of this to draw you out. But once again, he even recognizes like Dom didn't have the best of intentions, So now you can understand why she's so desperate about this whole situation, why she, trying to understand why they did what they did, which, yes, they had the reasons, but it's like, you should have found another way. You did what you did, and you took away someone that I loved and care about. So no wonder she's so dead set on not only trying to stop this whole Townsend directive situation, but also getting revenge against them from what they took away from her. So I just think that's kind of, it's understand. I always like it when you're able to kind of understand the villain a little bit more in the grand scheme of things. But what was interesting and the most heartbreaking thing for Katerina is like, I was your best friend. We had such a close tied connection, yet you still betrayed me. Yet even in this moment, you're still protecting Reddington's identity. Who is he? And that's a question, like, who is he and what part does he have to play in all of this? Once again, the mystery of Reddington keeps turning and spiraling. Just when you think you know everything figured out, it's not. So who is this guy? And why is he so important to Ilya? Like, why are you protecting him above Katerina? Like, whatever it is, it runs so deep that he would even, like, I mean, hell, he even tried to kill himself last episode just to keep this secret. And it's like, what is this secret that's you're so desperate to keep? Like, the secret that's literally been on everyone's mind since it's like, who is Reddington really? And it's just, it makes you even wonder, did Kate ever know his real identity? Or was she always under the impression that he was Ilya? I'm assuming that's the case, but I mean, even she probably never knew. Like, this is probably a well-kept secret that you think Dembe might know, but hell, maybe even did, because what did Reddington say when it's like, oh, like when Cooper confronted him, it was like, oh, about who he is and everything. Because Reddington was like, it doesn't matter who I was before, it's all about who I am now. Reddington, this is who I am, so who I was doesn't matter before. So, which is ironic considering the fact is that's the biggest question of all, and the question is why. Maybe, I think, because Katarina's probably thinking if she, probably like finding out who he really is. Obviously, it's a more personal question, but maybe in the end it can be used to clear her of whatever this whole Townsend situation is, to kind of get back the life that was stolen from her. That, obviously in her own way, pretending to be Madeline and everything is her own attempt to try and get a little bit of that back. Spending time with her daughters, secretly spending time with her granddaughter and everything. So that was interesting. But even when the time came, because obviously they tracked down the Orion relocation services, but the lady in particular ended up dying because the lady that was being relocated ended up killing her. To be fair, the lady was going to kill her too, so it's kind of like it was 100% self-defense. But obviously, it turned into that whole thing of like, wait, Parker's like, yeah, I told Reddington first, but it's like, all right, he's not going to tell us what he finds out, is he? And it's like, no, Reddington. And even Liz asked him, it's like, when were you going to tell, would you have told us about the Orion relocation services you finding it? And he was like, eventually, probably like after he'd already dealt with it all. It's like, probably like, oh yeah, I found him. Oh yeah, plus the lady that's connected. Like I said, I'm really curious, like, would he kill Katarina even after all of this? Once again, like I said, he doesn't have a connection, at least that we know of. That depends on who he is. He has to be someone for them to go through this much trouble to look after Liz the way they do. Not unless it turns out that it can't be the thing of that he's the real Reddington, Katie. I feel like it can't be, because the bones were the real Reddington. So it's like, because like that's the thing, like who else would have the motives to look after Liz the way they do? Like dedicate literally everything, becoming this master criminal for the purposes of. So it's like the way he talks about Reddington doesn't seem like he is Reddington. It's kind of like because he in court last season he cleared Reddington's name of like all this stuff he was accused of doing. The Cabal was the one that orchestrated everything. He told that truth to clear his name. So that's why I'm like, I don't know what to make of that. So that's definitely going to be interesting to kind of trail that all together. But they have the files, and obviously, Reddington knows who the lady is that took him. So it's like, hey, let's work together and find this lady. But obviously going through the files, of course, who's going to find it? None other than Liz. Liz finds it and keeps it hidden. And then she goes back home. Because then it starts clicking in her head, like all the puzzle pieces come together of like who Madeline really is. So she goes back home, checks on Agnes, and then confronts her mom, has a gun in her hand and everything with a silencer too. And it's like, oh, it's like they weren't after Agnes, they were after you. And she's like, what? I killed someone? What are you talking about? It's like, I always knew, on some level it was you. I just couldn't, the pieces were there, I just wasn't really willing to see it. But it's like, killing someone and all that, like that's something Madeline wouldn't do because she was a sweet lady. But you, Katarina, it's like that's not above you. And it's like, oh my God. So it's like Liz has kind of figured it out. For her, it's like the fact of the matter is, you've hurt the people around me. You put my daughter, your granddaughter, in danger. So the fact of the matter is, even Liz is like, if I end this now, it's all over. I don't have to worry about this anymore. It's like, give me a reason why I shouldn't pull this trigger. And it's like, well, because you gave yourself the reason. I'm your mother. And Liz is going her entire life not really knowing her mom. And it's like, she'll never get the opportunity to really know her dad. So it's like, despite everything, it's like, probably, she can't pull the trigger. So the thing was like I said, well, could Reddington at the time came. So now probably like, because Liz is so wanting the truth, I think now that the truth is within her grasp, this whole Katarina thing, especially if Katarina probably tells her the full story of everything that went down, I think Liz is going to want to know the truth. So the one way to get to Ilya's truth is to get Liz involved. Liz might be the one that can break the barrier because she wants to know the truth. So rather than Katarina try to reach out to him, I think Liz will be the one thing that will break through to be like, okay, this is the truth. This is who Reddington really is. So, which is interesting because, obviously Liz did everything she did last season to try to know the truth, but then she was kind of like, oh, the truth doesn't matter because, I know enough of the truth now to kind of be satisfied. But obviously that wasn't 100% satisfactory because you're still looking for the truth now. Granted, it wasn't what you thought it was, was, because you were thinking like, oh, like whoever this was coming after, the Russian mob was coming after, you know, because she kept it from Reddington because Reddington was keeping stuff from her. So it's just, like I said, it's just a jumbled mess of everyone keeping secrets. I mean, that's what ends up happening the most in the show. Secrets upon secrets upon secrets. So I just think that's just kind of interesting. Like, I think we're going to see them potentially working together because Liz is that desperate to find out the truth, especially when she finds out, wait, what? That dude Frank is Ilya. Then who the hell was this guy telling me he's Ilya? Who is this guy pretending to be Reddington? So it's like, now all this time you spent telling everyone else like who Reddington really is, and it turns out even bringing in the most recent person, that being Agent Park, into finding out who Reddington is, and it turns out nope, he's not who you think he is. Which obviously there's still the whole thing about Park's secret. Like, what is her secret? Like, what was so, you know, what was the thing that she told Liz that she hasn't told anyone else? I am so very, very interested to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.